one of the things that is a bit of an in for people into looking at this system is hearing about what we call insane trade or redundant trade, which is the fact that countries are routinely importing and exporting identical quantities of identical products. So last year, Germany was the world's second largest importer of milk and the world's second largest exporter of milk. The US imported $3.5 billion worth of beef and exported $3.75 billion worth. So there's this kind of crazy logic to this system that when people kind of realize that, they're like, oh, you know, we thought global capitalism was efficiency, and we thought, you know, how is this possibly happening? And part of it, something that we're really trying to raise a lot of awareness about is subsidies, taxes, and regulations that are key to supporting a global system. Billions of dollars for telecommunications, for AI, for quantum computing, for all of these systems that make barcode technology at the supermarket cheap. So every price tag in a supermarket, not just for the barcode technology reason, but for all of these reasons, is an artificial construct. We can use subsidies, taxes, and regulations to make local, organic, healthy food the most accessible and affordable food in the marketplace. And if we did that, how different our world would look.
A local farmer's market here doesn't want a ton of straight carrots, can't deal with that. So I'm so happy to know many of the farmers who, you know, from the beginning when I helped to start the markets in Byron, now they've started diversifying because it's in their interest to actually grow a range of things that people want. And whenever we encourage diversification of the land, we are encouraging more productivity. And so this is one of the absolutely fundamental truths that we really need to wake up to. It's about economic literacy linked to ecological literacy. The economic system that's developed has been pushing monoculture, and that the decentralization or localization is essential because diversity is a absolutely foundational principle of life. So we must localize. Now, to what extent? To what extent do we shorten distances? To what extent do we find ways of keeping certain elements of global trade? This needs to be discussed now when we're talking about policy choices. But what we really are so happy to have been able to do is to encourage people to start building those conversations and relationships at the local level. What I'm seeing is that if you are working in Monsanto, and I've known some lovely people working in Monsanto who are passionate environmentalists, but they have become convinced that we must have genetic engineering to feed the world. And I've seen it again and again. There's this fear agenda that there are too many people now, how we're going to feed them. The latest propaganda is that we can't afford agriculture, that agriculture has destroyed the world, like what we're saying too. But we're saying industrial, for-profit, extractive, large-scale, monocultural. That's what's destroying the world. Smaller scale, diversified, employing more people can save the world. And the wonderful thing about that message is 8 billion people. We need a lot of people to restore the damage done by machines. And we've got to be really careful now of the propaganda that we want even more people removed from the land into giant cities and have robots do the farming.
At the rate that nature, i.e. nature without humans, creates topsoil in arid areas of Australia, if we have humans producing food on that land, the rate at which we can create topsoil is 20 times more. So if it takes 100 years for nature to create that level of topsoil, in this part of Australia, it takes only 5 years for humans to create that topsoil. And we can actually, get into a conversation about carbon and carbon sequestration and what, but that topsoil is absolutely, no one can deny the value of that. It is creating more nutritious, the ability to grow more nutritious food. It's holding water so that when we have floods that is held in rather than just running off the landscape. So we can be part of the solution, is the message. Our human intelligences, our hands and our eyes on the land can bring that land back to life, rather than having machines that are treating the land like a freaking factory and destroying the topsoil, as we have been doing. So we can be part of that solution. We're told that that the global economy can transition to green energy sources, and that it's like the biggest lie of our time, or one of the biggest lies. It's so like to transition half of our current needs, and remember, these aren't needs, they're the needs of industries and of global businesses, they're not people's needs, but to provide half of what is currently demanded through wind power would require the construction of 3.7 million new wind turbines, which is 2.5 billion tons of steel, 2.5 billion tons of concrete. And so it's actually just a new mega industrial project that we're being sold as the solution to our environmental challenges. We've just so got to see through that and realize that we can dramatically reduce energy use and resource use by shortening distances, by localizing, by scaling down and slowing down, while providing for real human needs and recreating the structures of community. That is, for me, the vision that really urgently needs to be reintroduced to this climate debate.
It's big business sitting there constructing this language, and everything to do with net zero, everything to do with carbon is helping to confuse us and to usher in essentially a totalitarian, top-down monoculture like we have never seen, a very scary one. I don't want to, maybe I do want to scare people, but at the same time, I want you to know how many fabulous people are doing things in the opposite direction. There's so many women in particular who are just going back to the earth, listening to their bodies, listening to nature, instead of listening to a left brain, very mechanistic worldview. And they're starting to actually awaken to something that inspires people, that creates health, that creates joy, that creates celebration. There's this huge cultural turning where people want a better relationship with nature. They want more community. Everybody, intrinsically we want that because we evolved that way. And there's so much happening from the bottom up. But it needs to be combined with an understanding of what's happening from the top down. And I think then we're going to see, real people power.